The Badgers will have a new quarterback this fall. Our sports director, Carly Murata, sat down with Billy Edwards Jr. and in part one of their conversation, he shares why he chose Wisconsin and what he brings to the offense.
With one college season left, why Wisconsin? What sold you?
You know, really on my official visit, I think I probably was here two and a half days. I met with Coach Grimes for probably a total of 6 or 7 hours, and we were in here a lot because he had just been hired 2 days before. So it was a lot of, obviously I'd done my homework before then, but just I was asking, what's your vision? What do you, obviously, with where he's been at before, there's not a better school in the country than Wisconsin for him to come in and kind of establish what he wants to up front with the run game, and then as a quarterback, the ability to run the ball is our biggest friend. So it was really a perfect fit of me getting outside my comfort zone and him and them handing me the keys to this offense and get this thing rolling.
Luke Fickell's entering his 3rd year at Wisconsin. What's your relationship like with him?
It's been great. It's been great. Obviously, I think he was probably the first person I talked to, when getting in the portal, and we're always talking about leadership, and it's a very transparent conversation. It goes back and forth of, hey, this is what we need of you, and vice versa. He's asking what he needs from me, in order to make that happen and stuff like that. So it's been good, and there's not a coach in the country that I'd want to play for under my last year than Coach Fick.
Much of your career was a waiting game. Now coming off your first year as a starter at Maryland, how did that year impact who you are today?
I think a lot. I think I went through a lot of adversity as a team. I think me personally fighting through some injuries. I think that was a really rewarding moment to win that job and to kind of present myself as a starter, because like you said, it's been a waiting game a lot of my college career, and I think the biggest thing for me is I always from a young age as a college player figured out it's all about opportunities. The season didn't go as we wanted or as I wanted, but making sure I learned from all those things, because there were a lot of good moments to learn from and a lot of good things that I accomplished both individually and as a team.
What can Badger fans expect from you on Saturdays?
Tough, gritty guy. I think the style of the offense, who knows how much you're going to see me run, but just a guy that's going to give us all. I think the biggest thing, whatever's asked of me, whether I'm throwing to Vinny Anthony or Jaden Ballard or whoever it is, taking the tops off, I'm going to give it my all. There's the stadium I've seen, and I played here in 2022, and it was a bad weather game, but it was still a great environment, and to be representing a school and a program like Wisconsin, like I said, there's nowhere else I'd rather be than here, and I really get a great opportunity to play for one of the top programs in the country, with the tradition, the history, all that stuff. So I'm going to give it my all. I got 1 year left, and it's time to empty the tank.
How often do you think about running out of that tunnel into Camp Randall for the season opener?
Pretty much every day. Definitely every time I'm here, but even when I drive by it, and I get flashbacks of when I was here in 2022, but obviously on the wrong sideline. I don't think as an older guy, as a 5th year who's played in a lot of different stadiums as a backup, as a starter, been in a lot of different environments, I don't know if I'm fully ready for having that type of support surrounding us.
And part 2 of their conversation airs tomorrow with more on who Billy Edwards Jr. is off the field.